I believe that for me, when I can be engaged in things that are as close to my heart and my understanding of who I am and what I can offer, that I'm living well. When I can be really aligned with my values and my actions are ones that I know I'm in integrity with what I believe and what I find most valuable in life. I feel like I can't go wrong and it's going to be good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick Rodell. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Margaret Golden. Margaret is a Professor Emerita at Dominican University of California and the Education Community Manager at UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. As a professor at Dominican University, she worked with the Center for Courage and Renewal, founded by Parker J. Palmer, to facilitate the Courage to Teach and Leading Together programs, dedicated to supporting teacher well-being and the revitalization of school communities. She currently works with the education team at the Greater Good Science Center to design and facilitate science-based communities of practice, working to change the dominant narrative in education to one that values compassion, kindness, forgiveness, and cooperation. Hi, Margaret. Good to see you.
Hi, Broderick. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, nice to be with you. I'm excited for our conversation today. I hope it's a lot of fun. I'm putting the pressure on you.
Okay, I'll try to be not pressured.
I'm joking. Yeah, I'm very excited for this conversation. I know we've had many conversations in the past offline, and I was like, well, Margaret, you'd be a great person to share your wisdom with the world, with your life experiences and the work you've done. So much work and uh, things pertaining to the good, like working with the Greater Good Society. So I like to start off just by asking you to say a little bit about yourself. Describe yourself as you like to, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, I'm living in Berkeley, California, and I'm the mother of four young adults um, who I'm very proud of and love very much. I come from a pretty large family, youngest of five kids, and I grew up in the sunny California town of San Diego. So being next to the ocean is really important for my well-being.
Awesome. I love how you introduce yourself as a mother of four lovely children. I think that says a lot. So let's jump right into this idea of living well. I like to ask guests from the very beginning, and then we'll just unpack that as we go along. So, what is living well to you, and what is the good life?
Well, I believe that for me, when I can be engaged in things that are as close to my heart and my understanding of who I am and what I can offer, that I'm living well. When I can be really aligned with my values and my actions are ones that I know I'm in integrity with what I believe and what I find most valuable in life. I feel like I can't go wrong and it's going to be good. That doesn't mean it won't be hard because it takes a lot of courage to do that, but it does. It is living well, living aligned and in alignment with my core beliefs and values.
Hmm. So living in alignment with your heart, these core beliefs and values. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Tell us a little bit more about what those are.
Hmm. Yeah, I really value friendship, and I value what it takes to um, stay in relationship with people because um, human beings disappoint you, and there's some sadness, in life, and being able to maintain and forgive people, I think, and to feel that people forgive me for my shortcomings is really important to me. And it helps me to live in alignment, is to have the kinds of relationships that um, walk alongside with me in life and mirror back to me when I'm lost a little bit about my remembering like who I am. And I hope that that's what I can do for others as well. I think that's one of the reasons I became a teacher, is I love the authenticity of young children, and they don't hold back, and they tell you what they're thinking, and you can help them by mirroring for them what they have to offer, because you see it, we can see it in one another.
Mm.
So there's something very relational about that for me that I um yeah, so
Yeah. So relating to others, being in relationship with others and having that bond, that connection, that
right,
open you said something about children and that authenticity that they bring. It's like when you're in relationship with someone or with others, when they're authentic, they're real, they're not putting up, and we inevitably all put up boundaries, but
right.
the boundaries are porous enough that you can really connect, and there's enough spaciousness there, and you don't feel contracted when you're around those who you're relating with. That is freeing. That does feel good.
Mm.
I
It's
can see that.
paradoxical because good boundaries are really what allow you to relax. And I think that, that's one of the things that I've worked with teachers on. It's like not all, just letting it all go. It's about creating space for people and children in that realm, in the classroom, that they can feel safe, and they know that no one's going to hurt them, and they
Hmm.
know that you're going to care for them, and you're going to hold everyone accountable to the same things, and then they can relax and be who they are, and they can also um, live aspirationally to being kind to others. So there's both the individual and then the community that you have to balance there, but it requires creating that space.
Hmm.
So I think that's how my my work has progressed from creating that space for children to creating that space for adults. And then when I can have that space in relationships in my own life, when people can hold that for me, and I can do that for them, whether it be my friends or my partner or my children. Um, those are the moments that it feels like there's a lot of love and there's a lot of courage, and um, yeah. So that's kind of um, it's kind of what I've seen as the purpose of my life. I've defined it as that, as being able to stay really in touch with what's most meaningful to me, and then just trust that that's enough. And of course, that's hard. You always have to, it gets obscured at times.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's the relationships that mirror back to you, because they are people that love and remember those things about you.
Hmm. Yeah, you said a few things here that I guess elaborating on your view of the good. You stress relationships and what relationships offer, and those things that relationship offer. You mentioned kindness, you mentioned love. Um, yeah, can you say a little bit more about that? Some of those values, what kindness and love and courage that you just brought up. Can you elaborate a little bit more and what those mean to you and why you think those are important to a good life or living well?
I think because it requires a certain amount of honesty. You have to be able to see, um, for me at least, what my shadows are. And I think that when you're in relationship with people who can be kind about that and not hurtful to you,
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to be able to integrate that stuff better and be able to be aware of things. Because if relationships are not held in that way, then you can really do some damage to people by you know saying things that are unkind. And I think kindness doesn't mean you don't say the truth. It just means that you say the truth with kindness. So it's like, again, back to education for me. One of the biggest things with children is you're helping them to both get along in community and stay true to themselves. But you have to be firm, but you don't have to be mean. You can be
Mm-hmm.
kind. And I think that's what friendships are, is people value you, so they want to be useful. But they also learn that, that's how you keep friendships, is that you're kind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it also, courage is, to me, the ability to act on your values, even when it's hard, even when your voice shakes. So to me, without courage, you aren't really able to actualize things. So courage gives you, having the courage to do something that you know is right, even though it's not easy. It's usually
Mm-hmm.
hard, right? To change in some way. Or for me, it's been a lot about standing up for my own self, because I tend to be other caretaking, or not, or valuing the other and being careful with others. And so I think the courage to have my own voice heard has been something that I have worked on. And I think living in our society as a woman, it's not unusual. So it's something that I uh, know that I've had to have courage to do. I think forgiveness for me sometimes is just a really huge virtue. And uh, I think self forgiveness is so important because it allows you to forgive other people. And it doesn't mean that you have to forgive. I remember learning from Jack Cornfield, Loving Kindness, Forgiveness, and Peace, I think is the little book. Um, Forgiveness is for you as much as it is for someone else. So you don't carry resentment, and your heart can open and be vulnerable again. But you don't have to stay in relationship with people either to forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a real learning for me, is like being able to let go of relationships. And I haven't had to let go of that many of them, but that's probably one of the hardest things for me to do, is to not always think there's another way to repair and to forgive. So, but learning that forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to stay in relationship is a big learning for me in this life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely very clear about how those attributes, those qualities of the good, um, are beneficial. And I love how you keep coming back to relationships.
Yeah.
how kindness allows you and opens up the possibility for healing, for growth, in relationship with others. And when we're kind to each other, again, like you said, no, make a mistake here. Kindness is not just what's the word I'm looking for? Just being nice and just taking damage from others. No, no, no. That's not what kindness is. Kindness is also being honest
Yeah.
and doing that in a nice way,
Right.
doing that in a compassionate way. Is being honest with someone. That's kindness. But and when you do that, there's something magical that happens in an interaction with another person. You know, when you're able to speak the truth about the situation, that speak your truth and about the situation that you find yourself with with another person, find yourself in with another person, you it allows them to open up. You know, it allows yourself to open up, and there's something beautiful that transpires in that situation, in that space. Like you said, though, it's scary. It's scary to be courageous, but when you do it from a place of kindness, there's something magical that happens that's indescribable. It's something, some spaciousness that is created that allows authenticity to come to surface. And then whatever needs to be worked out between you and the other persons, um, there's a greater possibility that something can be worked out because of those foundational values like
That's right.
kindness.
There's
Yeah.
some wonderful research in schools that I wish we would take more seriously. Um, and it has to do with the development in a community of relational trust, and that there's trust built in that community. And in schools, when relational trust exists within the staff, and
Mm-hmm.
as much as between the staff and the students do better in life, no matter what, if they've been in an experience like that. And that's kind of what happens when you bring people together, like I do as a facilitator, and hold them in a space where trust develops, because people aren't trying to um, change you, judge you, or fix you in some way. Instead, they're just holding the same questions you are about their lives. And in that space of trust, in relationship, we see the common humanity that exists amongst ourselves. So when we see that vulnerability in another person, in what they're struggling with, we actually can see it in ourselves. And then we have more love and empathy for that person, because it's um, we can empathize. We can see that. I have a little 15-year-old dog who's can't hear very well anymore, and I'm just
Mm.
trying to take care of him as best I can at this time.
Oh, that's great. A little bit of kindness, huh?
No kindness.
Yeah, I love how you brought up all those different. You keep bringing in other qualities of the good. This is what I'm my interpretation of it, of course, but
Yeah.
kindness. mm, You've mentioned love, forgiveness, courage, empathy, trust. All these different things, and they're not easy, folks. We understand that, but it's worth it. There's a reward for it. And when we can do that with each other, or we can work towards that in relationship, that opens up so many possibilities. I love how you brought up how the interaction of adults around children, and how we model to them whatever it is that we're doing, however we're relating to each other. But you can feel it in the space. When there's tension in a space, there's contraction. There's a lot of, and you can feel it. It's hard to describe, but you can sense that contraction. But when there's openness and trust and love in a space, you feel that openness, you feel that spaciousness. It affects you. And so when teachers are doing, educators are doing that around young children, you're teaching them beyond your words. They're seeing it, even if they're acting crazy. Sometimes they feel that and they sense that, and that is something that I think it's important to consider as educators when we're around young folks.
I think if people trust you and children trust you, they're more likely to comply with you when you ask them to
Yeah.
do something that will help another person, which
Mm-hmm.
is stop, picking on that guy,
Mm-hmm.
please stop. They're like, oh, I trust that you are somebody who's helping me, not
Yeah.
somebody who's trying to change me, but you're trying to help me be a better person.
Exactly. And I think that's a lesson that I know we're referring to the classroom, children and adults, but that happens in any kind of relationship.
Correct.
If we're modeling in our relationship trust and openness and spaciousness, other folks feel that, and it can be an inspiration to them. I think, one of the reasons why I decided to do this podcast in this way is to part of it is having a conversation and modeling in a conversation what's possible and allowing the listener to feel into the spaciousness of the conversation, because there's something that it does to you. It allows you to relax. It allows you to see that it's possible to have an open, trusting, loving, tender, kind interaction with another person. And you said something that's really important. I think a big lesson that we can learn, I'm going to say right now, but I think always, there's always drama in the world, craziness in the world, and adults behaving. I don't even know how to even describe it. Um, but that's a lesson. Like, if we can learn how to tap into that common good in each other and look in and interact with each other in a way with trust and kindness and openness, there's a possibility for greater understanding between each other. We may not agree on everything, but we can at least try to understand each other. And from that understanding, maybe we can make something better. Maybe we can resolve the issues that we're having with each other. Does that make sense to you? Am I?
It makes total sense. I think what makes it hard is that uh, people are uh, people are wired in a way that if they don't take care of their own health, well-being through practices that can allow them to bring down their stress and not be hijacked by things that are hard for them. So I think that's where mindfulness practices come into this, both relational ones and um, practicing uh, so that when you're in a situation, you know how to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and calm the body so
Mm-hmm.
that you can now access parts of yourself. Because once you're highly aroused in your nervous system, uh, it's difficult to bring things down into your heart. You stay with a barrier there,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't allow you to see the other as anything than a threat if you feel that things are happening. So I think that's where, you know, living your life in such a way that there's time for you to practice a lot of self care. And I mean that from taking a contemplative stance on things. It takes time. I do that a lot through reading, through meditation, through yoga, and just spending time in nature, because all of those things allow me to access that openness, that lightheartedness, my stress levels decrease. And then when I have to be in situations where I need to be courageous, because there's a lot of violence in the world,
Mm-hmm.
I can reactivate that by dropping in, um, and not reacting to. I may be activated, but being able to do something, take some breaths, being able to recall courageous times in the past, to stay engaged when it's hard,
Mm-hmm.
without resorting to violence, without,
E-
which is, violent words or violence to myself, by turning off or turning away.
mhm. Exactly. Yeah, these things, like I said, it's a challenge. It's hard. Um, it does require practice. It requires a level of cultivation. It's just not given. There's no one thing you're going to do that's going to magically change everything overnight. Um, I'm skeptical of that. I know people say it sometimes, but I'm very skeptical of that. I think it's we're better off thinking that it's something that we have to cultivate, we have to practice, and we have to hardwire these characteristics in our minds, or use that analogy, or how hardwired in our brains,
Yeah.
um, so that we're more likely to, when the situation arises, we're more likely to uh, express ourselves or attend to the situation in the way that we've been cultivating. So if I'm cultivating mindfulness, being aware, little doggy,
He's growling at me.
yeah.
I'll pick him up. You can all meet him.
Hi, we get him. But yeah, when we practice being aware and being sensitive and being open, and we're not being reactionary to life situations, the more we do that, the more we practice that, we're more likely to express that in the world. And so that's what the benefit of all these different practices are, so that we can be in relationship with others with openness and spaciousness. And then that allows us, or it can encourage us to live a meaningful life, a life well lived through relationships.
Yeah, I think one virtue, I would call it a virtue, is discipline. And it gets a bad name because people have, it's been misused to mean punishment. And discipline is something that I remember with young children, fourth graders, teaching was discipline to you. And at that time, I was a runner. I ran a lot of long distance running. And I said, it's getting up early and running, and doing it even though I don't really feel like it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it requires discipline to practice. Otherwise, you won't. So it's not just the courage is to act, and then the discipline is to practice so that you
Mm,
can act. And I like to bring that word back into having the positive connotation of discipline um, in your life.
yeah.
It's been useful to me um, in mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, discipline provides a structure. In my classes, I love to use the analogy of the power that lights our homes, that generates electricity. It's the discipline of the wire, that gives it structure so we can channel that electrical energy. And without that, electrical energy exists. It exists everywhere. It's just that it's being structured. It's being channeled through structure, through discipline, and that's how we get power. That capacity to act.
Mm,
And there's nothing wrong with that. You're right. It's been hijacked by violent punishment. Oh, that's discipline. Well, what discipline really is, it's just giving you structure. You're familiar with the Buddhist tradition, these various meditative, contemplative traditions. It's all about discipline. It's
right.
all about cultivating self-discipline, So, and you use and you cultivate that self discipline so it can enable you to live better, to live well, to be a better human being. And that's what discipline is really all about.
Right.
So, where did this come from, Margaret? You're a teacher, you're an educator, you're interested in all of these things. Can you tell us a little bit about where this came from? What's your story? What's the story behind how you got to be an educator
Hmm.
and interested in these things?
Yeah. Well, I had a slightly tumultuous childhood myself, and I was a very bright, inquisitive child. But had a very strict father, and he was actually abusive, and I found a lot of uh, fortitude through my teachers. So I had teachers early on in my life as a young child where I felt safe in that classroom and they saw me. I felt so seen by a lot of my teachers. I was a good
Mm,
kid. I was a good girl, until I hit adolescence. So that was my early childhood. That was where teachers just made such an impact on me. So I think it's one of the reasons why I became a teacher. I don't know that I thought about it like that at the time. I thought about it because I was good at it. The kids liked me. I could develop relationships with them easy, and I decided that was something I could do because I didn't plan on being a teacher. I kind of fell into it. And I've kind of
mm,
fallen into a lot of things. So I think it came from that, having had to live in those two different worlds and knowing what saved me. And I think that did save me in some way. Yeah. I think also I've had a lot of loss in my life. I lost a brother early when I was in my 20s in a car accident. And then soon after, my mom died of cancer. And she never really recovered from losing her son. And so, so maintaining relationships and being, being, you know, careful because you never know when you're going to lose someone. And I
mhm,
think that's how I think relationships have become so important to me because of the um, acknowledgement and understanding very early that, there's no escaping this. And life is short and life is precious. And
mm.
I think that's it.
Yeah, when it's short and precious, and when it's hard, having somebody to be of support, even if it isn't a parent, having someone there that believes in you, that sees you, is so important. I can see how relationship is so important to you because you had those relationships that allowed you to relax and
That's right.
to be yourself as a kid.
And I still have those I have two remaining siblings. I think because our father was very difficult,
Mm,
we banded together and took care of each other. And
mm,
so I had a sister just die recently of a brain tumor, and she was the one that she was 17 years older than me. But when my mom died, she became like a mother figure. So I always had people that did that in my family as well.
mhm,
So that's why family is so important too. I started with that.
mm.
I I hold this desire to change the world, but I kind of do it with the people in front of me.
Yeah,
I try to impact, where I can.
yeah.
It's right there, that three, trying to remember the Tolstoy story of how to practice, uh, who to tend to. It's always what's right in front of you versus
Hmm.
some far away.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, but it has an effect. When we are the people right in front of us, that's where it is. It's great to be active and supporting causes, around the globe. I think that's really important for sure. And right here in front of us, in our immediate experience, how do we show kindness? How do we show these positive qualities in our relationships? Because then it has a trickle down effect through our own being. We're being that way, and we can only hope that it has an impact and influence on others. And then they have other relationships. They're not the only people that we're interacting with, and it just kind of spreads out.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that's how it really happens, because it's happening through, it's mediated through those relationships and what transpires in relationship. You know, like what happened to you with those teachers. You know, they inspired you in a way that you didn't know. You weren't thinking about being a teacher, but they inspired you through the respect that they gave you, the love, the tenderness that they gave you, that has influenced your life and shaped you. You know, your the work that you end up doing in the world. So those things are really important. So, folks, when life is hard, things happen, but they don't. We don't have to be prisoners to the horrible things that happen to us, or the difficult things that happen to us. We can transcend those things. And I think you're giving a valuable lesson of, can we be models in our relationships? Can we be models? Can we be of support to others, particularly children, the future generations? Can we be of model to them? We don't know what they're going through at home. You know, we don't know what our adult friends are going through at home. Can I be an exemplar of the good, so that that may have a influence or impact on their lives? Then they can go out and further that goodness in the world in some capacity. We may not know what that looks like, but I think that's the good work, is cultivating ourselves to be an exemplar, to be a model of the good, and have we don't know what influence or impact that's going to have on someone's life.
And I think it happens in super small ways too. It's just whoever you're encountering. I know I thought a lot about COVID's impact on me initially, was that we had to wear a mask. And uh, I, I enjoy looking in people's eyes and smiling. And I enjoy it's just natural. I don't like think that I'm doing that, but I know when I go into a space, I smile, and I smile in at whoever I'm with, like in the grocery store, walking down the street. And when that was taken away from me, it was like my superpower. I couldn't I couldn't smile at people. And so I had to learn to speak behind the mask more than, because I just I'll say things sometimes to people and be kind in my words, but just that sense of being open and seeing people, and smiling. I think it's a really amazing um, thing that you can offer. You never know the influence that smile has on. I remember there was some young guy years ago. I was at some Whole Earth Festival, and there was a smile thing going along. He had these little cards, and he would pass them around about smiling and its impact. But yeah, losing that. Sometimes when you lose something, it really, that there's a lot about that. You don't know until it's gone. So I
Mm-hmm.
think losing early for me was really impactful in helping me to like not stay in the place of suffering, but instead bring it forward as, well, I can do something about that. I can
Mm-hmm.
impact other people who may be suffering just by my presence.
Yep, exactly. I think that's not only does it enhance our capacity to experience the good and wellness, or live well, but we have an impact on others. I think you're touching on something that I think that's really really important, is that the good life, or living well, is not just within my own skin. It's how I show up in the world. What impact do I have on others? Can I extend myself beyond my skin? Can I see myself in the lives of others? I'm not saying we're going to be all perfect. That's why we got to practice. That's why we have to cultivate ourselves. I'm definitely not perfect. I fail. I can probably think and reflect on yesterday. How many times did I fail yesterday? Or how many times did I not live up to um, expressing that beauty and goodness in the world that I desire to do? And I'm sure I did. I'm sure I talked too much. I'm sure I said something I probably should not have said. But it's something that I'm cultivating, and I see that is really, really important because of what you're saying. We don't know the impact that we're going to have on someone else. And if I can exude goodness and beauty in the world, maybe through a smile or any act of generosity or kindness, that has an impact. It has a positive impact on the world. And I think that's just so important in thinking about the good life. It's not just about me and my skin. It's about me as the whole. It's about me as the world. And it can extend myself and identify with the world and identify with others, even people who are we don't align with on a lot of things.
That's right.
But yet we share this space, we share this world, we have something in common. And how do I exude that goodness if my perception of them is that they're not exuding that goodness in their behaviors or action? It's my responsibility to do it. Because if I want to live well, if I want to live good, when others are happy and well, it makes the world a better place to live in. It makes the world a
Right.
safer place to live in because other humans around me are um, feeling good. Let's keep it simple. Are feeling good in some capacity. And when people are feeling good, you ever go to I don't know, concert or a festival or something, everyone's feeling good. It's like contagious. It's like, wow, this feels really good. you know? You know,
That's right. Because
we
when, I think we're all bound and we're all in this together. And there's
yeah.
an energy around all of us. And when one of us is suffering, all of us are suffering.
Amen.
So we're not going to get out of this alone. So the more we can understand that, and I think practice it. There's a lot of tools. There's a really wonderful program that we're building at Greater Good called Bridging Differences, and I think the the basic tools around that are to be able to listen and
Mm-hmm.
listen to what people are saying and then connecting around what you both value versus
Yes.
about what is right or what's wrong, but what do we as human beings we can come around, we can be together on our same values. And I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that's the way in. And it requires a lot of non-judgment, even though you may be thinking it in your head because you don't agree with the person, not judging that person, instead responding to them with an open, honest question that asks them something about why they feel that way, or
Mm-hmm.
how did they come to that, or what do they value, and instead of responding with um, trying to convince them of your thoughts. And people just open up then, in a way, and it's not easy. And I do not at any time think it's going to be the only thing necessary, but
Mm-hmm.
it is a way to start relationally, and that's kind of how I see the world. So it's something I can offer.
Yeah. That's what this podcast is about. You pretty much explained it. It's listening, it's the focus of attention on the good. So we're
Mm.
going to create this space where let's focus on the good. I know that I assume that you have a view of what's good. I have a version of what's good. And then let's listen to each other share and talk about that. Like you said, I'm not going to agree with everyone about all of the facets of their lives and their story. Of course not. That's not the point. Yes, I want to convince people to see the world the way that I see the world. Of course, that's natural for us humans to do that. But when we allow ourselves to see through another person's eyes, and I think disciplining that conversation with the boundaries of what's good,
Mhm.
what's living well, and say, okay, then let's have that conversation because it opens up the possibility. Say, okay, that's why I have this belief about this particular issue. I have this belief about abortion. I have this belief about politics. I have this belief about et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm having that conversation from this knowing that, oh, they're doing this because this is what the good, this is, comes out of this idea of the good for them. Or maybe they don't see that. Like, is that in line with what your core value of the qualities of the good? Is that in line with that? We can have that conversation. They're more open to hear that conversation versus me trying to ram my ideas into their head, or vice versa, them trying to ram their ideas into my head. It just increases further and further polarization. We just spread further and further and further apart.
Right.
And we're not willing to actually hear each other. And I'm like, no, let's create the condition. Can we be open to hearing each other? Yes, we're going to disagree. That's obvious. No two humans are going to agree on anything 100%. I just don't think that's possible. Some people are going to agree at a high degree, and a lot of us are going to agree at a low degree. But we can still tap into that what we have in common, and I'm suggesting that we at least have a conversation about the good and reflect on that, because we can at least say that we all have a common interest in the good in some capacity. I, I know I'm saying we all, I'm sure there are people out there that don't, of course. But a lot of us do have an interest in the good.
Well, I'd say the Center for the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley was founded by Dr. Keltner, who all of his early research was looking at um, how we're born good. It was showing how children come into the world being kind, having empathy, wanting to share, wanting to take care, and that we actually get deformed from that by the kind of things that we do to one another. And
Mm-hmm.
that people build walls then and don't allow that because they've been hurt. There's some
Mm-hmm.
violence that has occurred for them. And I think that if if you have that understanding, and science is clearly showing that human beings are born good. They're born with those capacities of compassion and empathy. But there are some other stories in the world that have told people that they're born bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to do what that story says to be good instead
Mm-hmm.
of resting in their goodness that was inherent from the beginning. Um, I think that's probably partially what has contributed to a lot of struggle because of those two different competing stories about goodness.
Exactly. The story, like you said in the beginning, the relationships that a being is born into. What kind of environment is that going to, how is that environment going to mold this potential for the good? The way I look at it, this potential that a being has. Because when I think of good, I think of rational actors or people interacting, engaging in a way that has some intention behind it.
Yeah.
And but we learn that when we're born. No, we don't come in here with a blank slate. We come here with capacities, be they neurological or be it capacities of the soul, or however one wants to look at it. We come here with some innate tendencies and personality that is hard to describe, of course. Yet we have this capacity and openness to good. And if you think about it, from birth to about 2 years old, the world is one whole thing for that being. It's not separate. So of course they're going to be quote unquote good because it's all they perceive everything as itself. When you and I were like 6 months old, the world was all it was everything was us. There was no me and you. It was just me. Everything. If you watch a kid, you like, if you have that in mind, you can see that in them. It's like, yeah, they're just navigating the world as though it's itself. But it's the adults around that traumatize, that do all kinds of things during that phase of their lives. And then when they really start to see that them and the world are separate, who's modeling them? Who's modeling to them?
That's
Who are
right.
the adults in the room? And that's why I feel like we have a responsibility to cultivate ourselves, to develop goodness. Again, not just for ourselves and our own skin, but for the children, the future generations, for the other adults. But more importantly to me is the children. How am I modeling to these young beings that are being molded? And we need to be having the, I feel, it behooves us. I'm going to say need. I feel like we need to be having these conversations and really thinking about what does it mean to be good? What does it mean to be an exemplar of something beautiful and wonderful, so others can see it. Again, even if I'm an adult around a kid and I fail, and I've definitely done that trying to teach kids. But then coming back to them and like, yeah, I failed. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. Being a model to them, and they learn from that.
That's
And I
right.
think sometimes we don't do that. Like your dad, just being an authoritarian figure in a home and being abusive, and you shut down a child. You shut down the adults in the room when you're being, so dogmatic and fundamentalistic about your take on life.
That's why I started, I think, like forgiveness is so important
Yeah.
because we're all human. Like
Mm-hmm.
we all have shadow and light. We're not ever going to be perfect. Perfection is the worst thing we can try to be. Now there's another paradox, right? We want to be disciplined, we want excellence, we want to be able to bring light and kindness into the world. But guess what? Sometimes we don't. And
Exactly.
when we don't, we have to be honest about it, right? I was wrong. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm gonna try to do better. Let's talk about what you need. Like there's so many ways to do that it requires people to be vulnerable. And humility is so important there. And if we're always right, then we can't forgive. We
Mm.
can't forgive ourselves when things
No.
go wrong. It has to be someone else's fault, right? Because I can't tolerate that being wrong. I can't
Mhm.
tolerate the vulnerability that feels in me um, if I'm always have to be right.
Yeah. But that's good though. To me, that is the good. The
Yeah,
good is being able to apologize. The
that's
good is
right.
being able to recognize my uh, fallibility as a human being. Being
That's right.
able to recognize that I'm going to fail, but I have to pick myself up. I'm going to say something out of an emotional hijack or just out of ignorance, not knowing any better.
Right.
And then being able to understand that and say, hey, I didn't know any better in that interaction I made a mistake. And I think that um that's so important, and we forget that
Yeah.
sometimes. And again, I don't get into politics here, but on various ends of the political spectrum, I guess what we're doing, we are talking, this is politics, this is talking about human relationships, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
These extreme ends of of the political perspective spectrum. We're a lot of people doing that. I'm right and you're wrong. I'm like, hold on for a minute. You might be right, and I might be wrong, but can you hear where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Because I feel right from my perspective. Can we at least try to understand, and then if I realize like, oh yeah, yeah, that's an interesting way of seeing things, and maybe I can look at it that way. Maybe let me go home and reflect, but give me the space to do that. To me, that's the good. It's the messiness of life and being able to figure it out together in the messiness. That's good. Good is not just, oh, everything is peaceful,
Right.
everything is perfect. No, I'm not saying that. You're right, it's that paradox. We work towards that in
That's right.
recognizing that we may not ever get to that utopia that we desire, any of us, and just being honest with ourselves about that.
My mentor, Parker, has talked about it as it's not effectiveness towards an outcome or getting there. Martin Luther King said, I may not get there with you, but this is what I've seen and I know I can get. We will get there at some point, but that may be a
Mm-hmm.
very long time.
Mm-hmm.
You measure how aligned you are with trying to stay that course by faithfulness to it, coming back to it. That's why in the Buddhist tradition of beginner's mind,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get out lost at some point, but
Mm-hmm.
you bring yourself back, then you can stay faithful to your own feelings of what is good and how to keep going. If you don't do that, um, and you measure it by how good was I today, like, well, how effective did I change the world today? Usually not. Like, well, you may have changed a person's mind or their heart. You may have helped somebody along that was struggling just by your presence. Um, and that's faithfulness to the working toward the good.
Yeah. The process.
Yeah, it's
It's
the
the
process,
process.
right?
Yeah. And I like that, staying faithful towards it. We're coming to a close. You said quite a few beautiful things here, kindness, forgiveness. I don't even know if I can remember them all. Courage, vulnerability, humility. We talked about beauty. I know I at least said it. Maybe you said it as well. Happiness, joy, all of these positive qualities are something that we work towards. And it is a process. And we're going to stumble along the way because we're fallible creatures. And I think that the gift of being a human being is that we get to do this. We get to play this game. We get to do our best to exude goodness in the world. And and then we leave it, but hopefully we leave it better by our being, by our actions, by how we showed up. For me, I think that's what's most important. As I've gotten older, I think there was my youthful part of me. I'm like, I'm just gonna be this yogi. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna try to become as perfect as I can and try to illuminate goodness in the world and shine my light and hope the world change before I die. And I'm like, no, the world is changing for sure. Absolutely, the world is changing. I'm sure I'm having an impact in some way. Sometimes negative, sometimes hopefully more positive than negative. And I just know that I extend beyond time too. I not only do I extend beyond the surface of my skin, but my being, my true being, extends beyond time as well. And so, though I may not experience in this lifetime my utopia, my dream world, that spirit that resides in me shall experience it in some way, in some capacity. At least that's the story I tell myself.
Moment by moment,
Right? Lifetime by lifetime.
just moment by moment. There's
Yeah.
another paradox, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, Margaret, this has been awesome. I've loved this conversation. I love the things that have come up. Yeah, so much to reflect on. I hope you, the audience, have gleaned something from what we have talked about today. I appreciate your wisdom, Margaret. Is there any final words, anything you would like to leave the audience with?
Hmm. I have yeah, I want to do this because I have there's a quote. Louise Erdrich is a favorite author of mine. And
Mm,
when you were speaking then about like all the things that make a good life, all that requires courage to get out there and actually be joyful, right? And
yeah.
know that you've taken risks. It's so risky. And she wrote this. There's this really wonderful quote from The Painted Drum that I'd like to read aloud. I've told friends of mine, this is what I want you to read at my memorial. And she says, life will break you. Nobody can protect you from that. And living alone won't either. For solitude will also break you with its yearning. You have to love. You have to feel. It's the reason you are here on earth. You are here to risk your heart. You are here to be swallowed up. And when it happens that you are broken or betrayed or left or hurt or death brushes near, let yourself sit by an apple tree and listen to the apples falling all around you in heaps, wasting their sweetness. Tell yourself you tasted as many as you could.
Beautiful. Can you say her name again?
Louise Erdrich.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure to put that poem in the show notes with her name.
I'll
Thank
send it.
you.
Thank you,
All
Brad.
right. Thank you so
My pleasure.
much. This has
Been
been
a
great.
love you, man.
Love you too. All right. Until next time.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.